Hello and welcome to this pattern recognition video featuring Knight Outpost patterns. I'll try and do at least 5 puzzles, 10 if they go along fast enough. So I had a viewer ask about knights versus bishops and middle game plans, and so I've been starting this new line of pattern recognition videos with the Knight Outpost because that's an important middle game plan. Here it's into an end game, but it can still work. Anytime you can place a knight, especially on the enemy side of the board, and it's protected by a pawn and it can't be chased away by any pawns, attacking it here or here. This pawn is already pushed past the knight or beside it where it cannot attack it. Okay, so we're looking here, trying to figure out, checks, captures, and threats in that order. Can we go after the king with a check that will do anything? The knight could jump here and deliver a check, but that would block our rook, which is restricting the king. So we have to think about that. And the rook is under attack by this knight because white has just moved their knight. I forget where this knight was, here maybe, being attacked by the king. So the knight jumps up and attacks our rook. But something very important here is that anytime you have a king that's kind of stalemated, now an actual stalemate is when the king can't move and no other pieces can move. But if the king is in a position similar to a stalemate where it can't move anywhere because the rook is preventing the king from dropping back here, the pawn is preventing this, the king from going here. So the king is kind of trapped. Whenever that occurs in the game or in a puzzle, you want to see if there's a way you can take advantage of that and look for immediate checks. So if we go here, that kind of allows or blocks our rook from restricting the king. But what if we go here? So try and calculate that out. Pause if you need to and figure out how you would follow this move up. If we go here, the king, remember when a king is in check, there are 3 or less options: capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run. A knight cannot be blocked because it jumps over everything, and the king can't run anywhere. So the forcing move would be this pawn capture, but now that opens up the other rook to deliver a check. And the only thing that can be done, we can't capture that piece down in the corner. And the king can't run. So you would have to block, but then you just capture and deliver the mate. All right, so here we go. Check and mate. So that was 1822 rated. Once again, I've set these problems at 1000 rated all the way up to 2500, so you get a good mix of easy and more difficult problems, tactics, puzzles, or whatever. All right, rook has just moved here. Doing what? I guess that blocks a possible back rank mate by the queen, but the knight is in the way at the moment. So what do we have? Oh, and this is a Knight Outpost pattern video, so let's look at the Knight Outposts. Well, black has a nice outpost here where no pawns can attack that knight. Now the bishop could capture, but then they could just recapture and have a passed pawn. But it's white's turn, and we're looking for some advantage here. Okay, this could be a great pattern here. Take a look at it. Pause the video if you need to. If not, here we go. We are going to, well, before I make the move once again, as in the last video or last puzzle, the king is in a position where it can't go anywhere because the knight is covering here and here. So when that occurs, we really need to look hard at different checks that are available to us. Well, if the knight goes here, the rook can just recapture, and the rook would be guarding that square, preventing the back rank mate. But that wouldn't even be a back rank mate, really, because the bishop could also block there. But what if we go in on the other side, on the edge of the board, and sacrifice the queen? The king would be forced to capture. Then the rook could swing over, delivering a check. The queen would have to block, but we would capture. Then the king would be forced to run back up to where it was, and we could deliver a mate on h8. So here we go. Capture with check, check with the rook, check again, and the only move available is to go here, and then we would deliver a mate here, backed up by the knight. And that bad move that they made, preventing the king from running down to here. I'm going to put the analysis on so we can see how this would have continued. So the rook went here, and then capture, check, queen blocks, check again, and they didn't play it out any further. But the only thing that's possible is here, and then a checkmate. Now, even if that wasn't there and the king went here, well then, oh, I guess it doesn't work because that bishop is guarding that. Or excuse me, this bishop is covering that. But I guess if the bishop wasn't there, we could deliver a mate here with the knight and rook and the pawn working together. And that's an interesting pattern. Anyway, let me get out of this and go back to the next problem, or we'll have another long video. Okay, queen has stepped down here, attacking our queen. They have a knight on the outpost here on e5 in black's territory, but it's our move. What can we do here? All right. What is the threat? By dropping this queen down, or pressing this queen over here, they're attacking our queen, trying to trade off material. Right now they have 5 pawns, we have 4, so that's why they're trying to trade pieces off, because they have an extra pawn, even though their pawns are doubled here. Maybe we take the knight. If they capture, well then we can drop back and capture. And everything would trade off there on e5. What does that gain us? An extra pawn, and then we'll have but then they have these 2 versus 1 pawn majority over here on the queen side, which could be dangerous in the end game. So maybe we need more. Let's see. Oh, and also there is a threat here. That is why the queen dropped down here. A threat of mate in 1, backed up by that knight. All right. My instinct is to take this That's the obvious move. We capture. If they capture, then we could either capture with the queen, or we could capture here. They capture, then we grab that pawn. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like it gives us much. So I don't know. Maybe that's what we have to do. We capture there. If the queen tries to capture us, well, then we keep our bishop and we capture with the bishop. So we're probably going to have capture, pawn captures. Then we can capture with a check. Queen will capture. Our rook captures, protecting our pawn. Oh, wait a minute. Do we have any checks along here that we have to look out for? So capture, capture. The queen captures. I don't know. That just grabs us a pawn. The game's about even. Okay, before this is too long, I'm just going to try that. Okay, that's not what they want. Okay, they wanted us to capture first. And then now do we go after the knight? Oh, wow. Okay, now there's this. We take, and then we can fork the king and the rook. Okay. Then we're just ahead there. They'll grab this, and then they can't pick that off because our bishop is covering that. But we have an extra bishop versus their, extra pawn? 3 versus 4. Okay, next problem. The rooks have doubled up here, creating a battery, helping defend. We were attacking. But, okay, what's the material like? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Our opponent has 7 pawns. We have 4, 5, 6. So we're down a pawn. And then what do we have? We're down a pawn. We have some pieces around their king, but what can this knight do? And our rook is not doing much over here. Is there a way to trap the queen? Oh, wow. Yeah, maybe we just trap the queen here. I think that's the way to go. This queen is pretty restricted here. It can't go here or here because of the knight and the pawn. The queen can go here, though. So that's the only square the queen can move to. So if we go here, queen can move here. All right, does that accomplish anything? If we swing over, attacking the queen, queen goes here. Oh, then we can attack again with the rook. and go up here. All right, let's see if that works. Attack. The only place the queen can go is here. We attack again. The queen has to run. Or is the queen trapped? Okay, one more check at this. Or look, check, or not check, attack on the queen. Queen can only go here. We attack again with our rook. And the queen could go back where it was, okay? But then we have an attack here. If the rook takes, our queen will take and mate. So I think that works. And they didn't even show that, so now we just grab the queen. Now if we look at the analysis on that, so they go there, we attack the queen. Now we go here. Instead of the queen taking, what if the queen tries to move? The queen can't go along the diagonal because everything's covered. The queen would just have to move back to where it was. So here, but that, okay, then we would have a mate and 4, starting with rook captures, and the king, if you can't capture here, because then we would just deliver a mate. So what are the options? King to h8 is the only thing that you can do. And then now what? We have rook takes e7. Rook to f7, check. Oh, wow. Yeah, it all looks bad. But the two best moves, we could just take the rook and with a discovered attack. But, what if we just go here? Check. The king has to go to g8, and it would be a mate in 1. Or what? Queen to f6 blocks. Then we just capture with check, and then it's a mate anyway, like that. All right, out of that and back to problem number 5 here. Okay, bishop is under attack by this pawn, but we are lined up on their bishop, so the obvious move is to either retreat or just capture, unless we have something better than that. A lot going on, and this is where the middle game plans come into play. We see that our central pawns are aimed towards the king side, so generally that's the direction you want to play in, because as this pawn pushes forward and gives you more space in the center, it also aims towards the king side, these two pawns, and that dictates where you may want to play. In the future, you would probably want to push this other pawn up and start pressing forward. But when the pawns are pointing, the center pawns are pointing in a direction like this, you also tend to have more room in that direction of the board, because this e pawn is pushed further up the board, giving you more space. Okay. What can we do? What can we do? Well, we could just capture, and then we have this option of jumping here with a check and taking that maybe, unless there's something better. If we look at checks first, do we check immediately by jumping the knight up here, but it would just be captured? Oh no, they can't capture because then we would take the queen. So maybe that immediate knight move would be best. If we jump up here, forking the king and the bishop, their bishop cannot take us because then we would grab their queen. So the king would have to move and no longer be able to castle. And then we could take this bishop attacking the queen, and they wouldn't have time to grab our bishop on g5. So that looks to be the way to go. Check. Now we attack the queen, and then we have time to check the king, and then drop our knight back to safety on this outpost. So that's a great example of an outpost. If we take another look at that, so we jump the knight immediately onto the outpost, causing all kinds of problems in the opponent's position, delivering a check. Now the king can't castle anymore. Then the knight attacks the queen, but we're able to check the king with the bishop. Now the king would probably go ahead and take, giving us time to drop our knight back to the outpost. And in the meantime, we would just be ahead by a piece there. All right, well, that was 5 problems. I'll stop it there because my last video was a little bit on the long side. I think it was about 40 minutes, and I had a recommendation that I keep the videos at 30 minutes or less, but if you have a preference, feel free to let me know. Also, if there's any particular area you would like to see, if there's certain videos that you like, some that you don't, leave a comment and let me know what you want to see more of in the future. So like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.